not to bring up religion here, but the point is that direct action, nonviolent direct action was used to accomplish a purpose and to win. There is, in one of these pieces of information, how something like this could happen. Okay, so all it is going to take is a matter of education for the people up there and the people who are willing to take part with them in partnership. Okay, because if I could just run it down really quick, I don't want to take a lot of people's time.
Well, I really want to get some more reaction from
Sure.
folks who haven't spoken.
How much do they fine you? I mean, like, what if you get there and they say it's $5,000?
You know, like, there is definite risk here. People who have done civil disobedience have had to pay large fines. Some were sentenced to jail time. Like Mohandas K. Gandhi, he was assassinated when he was an old man, but he spent 6.5 years of his life in prison, at various times. Martin Luther King, he wrote his letter from the Birmingham jail. He spent 2 months in jail in Birmingham, Alabama.
The gentleman was just sentenced last month, the month before, I think. Yeah, Timothy Christopher. 3 years in prison. 2 years?
Yeah, 2.
Well, 2 years in prison for an act of civil disobedience, for nonviolent civil disobedience. I mean, in a situation, you have to judge who you're pissing off, where you're pissing them off, and I mean, again, as I brought up in the beginning of this discussion, are we doing this in the backwoods of northern Pennsylvania where the law enforcement and the judge might be bankrolled essentially by the natural gas industry, or are we talking about doing this in Philadelphia where it's going to be a catch and release situation where they process you, give you a short bail like they did at Parsons?
Yeah, but they're probably bankrolled by the companies too.
But they're much less likely to keep you in prison for months and months at a time.
But being the only woman up here, I would like to mention that there's a lot of things we take for granted in this country that we don't really think about the struggles that have brought them about. And one is the women's suffrage movement. And there's a lot of women who don't bother to vote, but there were a lot of other women who suffered terrible tortures and horrible experiences being arrested. And the same with the labor movement, not only in our country, but in other countries too. And those people were horribly treated. And the same with Gandhi's movement. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie where the people keep walking up and up and up, and every time they're pumped on the head. And they just keep coming because they're devoted to what they're responsible for. And so we don't know what's going to happen to this.
Part of what I want everybody to understand is we can talk about horror stories all you want, but the planning behind all this has to come down to the individuals who are going to take part in the action, people who support them in what they do, and how well people plan. Okay? If you're going to sit in on a site, okay, then you're going to need people to bring you food. You're going to need people to keep you warm if you're in the winter. Okay? You're going to need lawyers who are paid to take care of what's going on. Pro bono lawyers, whatever, however that gets worked out. All those things have to be planned out before you do anything. Because if you don't, you're going in with your eyes closed.
You need a legal defense fund.
You need to do all those kinds of things. And those are the kinds of things that we want people to be thinking about if this is a choice that people want to have.
Anybody else?
When you talked about Tim to Christopher, that was a little bit more extreme, and I don't want to scare people away.
saying, because there was a lot more involved in what
Absolutely.
had
Well, and that's what we're saying, is
Right.
that depending on what action you choose to take,
Right.
will determine the consequences.
Mitch.
But
She's
it's
not
hard
done.
to, yeah,
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to say that I know Rachel was there when we stormed and occupied Marcellus Shale Coalition office here on 2nd Street. And that seemed, we didn't really get any press, but I think it really made a big, big statement that day with the Marcellus Shale Coalition people. And the police did arrive, but we were just asked to leave.
We had
the
300
area.
people.
And, yeah, 300 people.
But if we
And
had chosen that day to stay there, that would have been, I think, a good time to make the individual choice of staying there.
Mitch, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just have a few little comments. Like one is when you're talking about the trespassing and resisting arrest, of course you can't negotiate what is going to be the outcome, but it's like you're not that serious. And there's got to be rules for people who don't do that. If there's land adjacent that is people who support, there's a lot of things to be done, including having a lawyer who throw down the red tape, and if people want to participate and don't want to get arrested, they can participate until the red tape's cut through the penalty, because cops are scared of lawyers, especially small town cops. And then also in terms of like is direct action successful or not, I tend to think about directing a different way. I think more about power. Like if you take over their well site, you have the economic power as long as you have that, because they're not making.
if you take over their what?
If you take over the well site, you have the economic power as long as you hold it, because they're not making money. And if you have popular support, you have that power. I tend to think about it that way, like how do you get your living.
If we have popular support. Jen.
I don't know if I remember what I was going to say. So I did ask a question that I felt like I didn't get an answer to. That was how, through history, how successful has direct action been? But maybe this will help kind of bring it to fulfillment.
Most times you lose.
Yeah, so what I'm wondering is, we came here to talk about civil disobedience. Like, how do you know when what you're going to do
You don't.
might be a victory? Like, because it kind of sounded like with what you were describing about this farm, that if that turned into a thing where you guys were at a standoff for a significant amount of time or something, and then it got enough media coverage or something to turn the tide, so to speak, I guess, and then that site didn't go in there, I guess that's the victory, right? But you just never know how the police are going to react, right?
Not necessarily. Them not putting the well site in there would not necessarily be a defeat or a victory. Even if they were able, and we're still talking about the hypothetical situation, even if they were talking about, if they did arrest everyone, and they still put the well site in, if you made the front page of every newspaper in the region and, more people were brought over to the side of this is wrong, then you may have lost that battle, but you've won the war. So I guess it's a two-pronged answer. As far as individual direct actions and acts of civil disobedience being successful, overwhelmingly they are unsuccessful. Overwhelmingly they do not change the specific incident that it was focused on. There's a slightly greater success rate as far as changing the dialogue of the movement itself and of the public perception itself, even if you failed at that particular action. It's really a case-by-case basis. But there's also a lot of civil disobedience that happens, like knuckleheads like me in D.C. Trying to storm a World Bank protest and getting absolutely nowhere and damaging our movement at the same time because we didn't consider anything going into it other than our own sense of self-righteousness.
There's a couple of victories you have to remember, though, and that is women's suffrage, civil rights, and the labor movement. And one other thing you have to remember is that they're trying to take those things away from us now. And that's why the Occupy movement